Hey guys, so today you're going to learn how to make a basic name tag in Fusion 360. This is a great beginner project because you can learn about the different things that will get you started in CAD. So first thing you want to do, if you don't end up at this page, like it says untitled, it's a design, don't end up at here, and you're going to go to new design, which you can also say Control N to create the new design. Alright, now that we have our design, we're going to go over to the document settings. The document settings, because we're going to be using inches here. So we want to go over to the document settings and click the drop down arrow, hover over the units icon, and then go over to the change active units icon. So once we've gotten there, we're going to switch between our units. If you want centimeters, you go to centimeters, millimeters, go to millimeters, meters, go to meters, inch, go to inches, and feet, go to feet. We're going to be using inches, so change your active units to inches. If it doesn't need to be changed, then exit out of it and you're good. So always in Fusion 360, you want to create a sketch because this is what is going to be based, this is what your object is going to be based on. So we're going to create a sketch. Here we have 3 different planes. Which one do we choose? All depends on what we're designing, but also doesn't matter. So when you design, you can design from a certain direction. If you want to design from bottom to top, then you would use the plane on the bottom. If you want to design from the side, you could use the 2 side planes. We're going to be using the XY plane, which would be the right side plane, not the left side plane. So we're going to be using that. But remember when I said it doesn't matter? It doesn't matter because you can go onto the view cube and you can edit the orientation of the object you were designing. So it doesn't matter in that case. Also, let's get started. Alright, so we got our plane here. So how do you create a sketch? You go up to the toolbar here. It says create, modify, constraints, inspects, and stuff like that. We go to create, and there are a number of options here. You have line, rectangle, circle, spline, mirror, dimension, and there's a bunch in the drop down menu. In this case, we're going to be using rectangle. Line would be, you can make a rectangle, you can make slanted, horizontal, whatever lines you want. And today we're going to be using a rectangle because that's the shape of our name tag. So let's create a rectangle. Alright, so right after you draw it, you're going to see that there are these 2-dimensional guidelines here. So you're going to see that you have a height and a length dimension. Your height will be 1.5 inches, so you're just going to type it in. And then to get to the next dimension, so the length dimension, you just hit tab and you go over to the length dimension, and this is going to be 3 inches. To verify that to lock these dimensions, you would say enter. You can always edit these dimensions later by just double clicking on the dimension. So this is what it would look like with a dimensioned rectangle, but not fully dimensioned. If it was fully dimensioned, we would see that the rectangle is black, not blue. So let's fully dimension this. The fully dimensioning this would mean that we set a position on this coordinate plane here. So I want to set the position that this point right here is coincident to this point. So see the word that I used coincident. That there's a constraint called the coincident constraint under constraints, which looks like a XY plane that you would have seen in math. So click that coincident constraint. You would click the point and this point, which would just join the points together like it is now. Boom. Okay, now that you see that the rectangle is black, meaning it is fully constrained and that we cannot constrain it any further, and we don't need to constrain it any further. So let's finish our sketch, which is this green check mark over here. Alright, now that we just have a plane sitting in the middle of nowhere, we're not really doing anything with it, it's kind of sad. So we don't have an object. We're going to extrude this. And what extrude means is basically create depth to an object. When you extrude something, you want to create the object instead of just having a regular old sketch. So let's create an object. Okay, now you can see that there is an arrow here. You can pull back, push forward, do whatever you want, you know, but we want a certain dimension. So we're going to go over to this. It should already be selected. We're going to go with 0.25 inches. That's going to be the thickness of our object or depth of our object. So now that we have a rectangle, we need to make the text and a keychain ring if we want it. So I'm going to go over and make the keychain ring and the text. And I'm going to also show you how to do those things. So what you want to do, there's two ways of making a keychain ring. One of the ways is creating a circle and extruding it so that it cuts the object. We'll go over that when we do it. And there's the hole tool. I wouldn't recommend the hole tool for this because we're just going all the way through. It's just a circle and it's pretty simple. So I would just use the circle for now. So we're going to go over the center diameter circle in the toolbar and we're going to set a dimension. All the dimensions for circles in Fusion 360 are in diameter dimensions. So in this case, we want our circle to be 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125 inches. Or you can also type, because Fusion has a great math catalog, you can type 1/8, which would give you the same dimension. Alright, now we're going to zoom in. To zoom in, you would just use the scroll wheel on your mouse. Going forward, going up on the scroll wheel gives zooms you in. Going down on the scroll wheel zooms you out. Alright, how are we going to position the circle? As I said before, the circle must be black for it to be fully dimensioned. Right now it's not fully dimensioned. We only have a diameter dimension. We don't have the position dimension. So we're going to go up here. It says dimension. Up here under the create toolbar, it'll say dimension. It is this shape that has two lines on the side and a double-sided arrow mark. We're just going to click that and this gives our dimensions. So the way to dimension an object is click the object you are dimensioning and click the object you are dimensioning to. Not object, face or figure or something like that. You want to click those two things. So we're going to dimension the circle, so we need to dimension it to an object. In this case, we're going to be dimensioning it to the rectangle that we have here. So we're going to pick the center of the circle because that's what we're dimensioning from, or that's what we are dimensioning. And we're going to click that. You're going to click the top of the rectangle so we can dimension from the top of the rectangle. So this is already surprisingly accurate that I have done it right, but if it isn't, then you would type in 0.2 inches. And boom, it's dimension. Next, as you can see, it's still not fully constrained, so we need to do another dimension. So to do this next dimension, we're just going to do the same thing again, except we don't want to dimension to the top because we've just done that. We want to dimension it to the side of the rectangle. So we'll dimension to the side and up, and again, I've gotten it surprisingly accurate, but if it's not accurate, then 0.2 inches is your measurement. And as you can see, once I've had that dimension, the circle turned black. I don't have any more further dimensioning to do. I'm fully dimensioned. Alright, we're not done with our sketch yet though, because we want to limit the number of sketches we have, although it doesn't really matter if you do or not. So let's go over to create. We're going to create our text. There's two different types of text. Text on path and text in text box. As you can see, if I hovered over it, you have the text box with text inside it, and you have text on path, which is a weird curvy thing, which we'll worry about later. Not yet. So let's click text. And we have the type of text here. This is text on path, which is on this arc, an A on this arc-shaped surface. And you have regular text, which is what I've selected right now, and you have just a regular A. So as you can see, your cursor has changed a little bit from your usual arrow mark. So this is basically a text box. This is asking us to make a text box for our text. So we're going to just make a random text box, doesn't matter what size, we'll worry about the size later. Here, once you've drawn your text box and done all the clicking and stuff, it's gonna ask you to type some text in. It's gonna say text, and then there's going to be a text box. We're going to type our name, or you can really type anything you want as long as it's school appropriate. And you can choose your font here. I'm going to go with the font I've already set. You can use, there's a lot of fonts. You can scroll through this for a while and find the font you like. And typeface, bold or italic. I'm going to keep it at bold, which is what I've already set. Or you can go italic if you want. The height, 0.394 inches. Character spacing, 0, because that's our default for wherever you are. If you type in a document, it's always 0 inches is the character spacing. The height varies, which is font size, but we'll discuss that later. And next, we have flip, horizontal, and vertical. So this basically mirrors your text. So it'll mirror it, make it seem upside down, or make it seem spelled backwards. But we don't really want to do that. You can if you want. And our alignment, we have 3 different alignment options for right, left, and center. And we have 3 different other alignment options for top, bottom, and middle. I want it aligned in the center and center again, so I'm going to keep it like that. Alright, now we need to dimension this. We need to dimension mainly the text box because we want to have a guideline of how to center our text in this rectangle. So let's go to sketch dimension again. Click the top because this is what we are dimensioning, the text box, and we are dimensioning to the larger rectangle. So let's click those two sides, and we've gotten a dimension right here. We want it to be 0.5 from the top. And next, we're going to dimension the height of the text box, which we don't want to be 0.6, we want it to be 0.5 inches. So let's go with 0.5, hit enter, and there you go. You have fully dimensioned the height of the text box. However, you have not dimensioned the length of the text box. If I were to click this and go out and try to dimension it, it would give me an error because I wouldn't need it. We know the height of the rectangle is 1.5 inches, and we know that it's 0.5 from the top and 0.5 is the height of the text box, so we wouldn't need to have this third dimension because it would be an over dimension. We could easily calculate that in our heads, so Fusion 360 doesn't allow us to do that. Next, we want to dimension the length of the rectangle. So first dimension we want to do, go from the left side of the rectangle to the left side of the large rectangle. So this again, 0.5 inches from the side, give that, and it's still not fully dimensioned because we don't have the length of the rectangle yet. Let's dimension that. The length of the text box, I mean. We want this to be 2 inches. So now it's fully dimensioned because the text box has turned black. Alright, let's go over and finish the sketch. Alright, so now that we've gotten a sketch here, we want to extrude the hole. We want to extrude this circle. We want it to be a hole, right? So let's go over to extrude. And we'll just click this circle. And it's asking us for the direction. I'm just going to drag the arrow all the way back because we just want it to cut through the object. So there's actually multiple operations you can use when you're doing this. We want to cut, but we could join, cut, intersect, new body, new component, new body, new component, doesn't really matter right now. Intersect, doesn't matter. Join and cut, very important. Join would mean that you would have an object and it would be whole on the other side. It would join the two bodies, as we call it, or two objects together. But we won't worry about that right now. We'll just go with cut because we want to cut through the object. And the distance doesn't matter because we're just going all the way through it. There we go. Okay, as you can see, the letters disappear. Not a problem. You go over to the browser here, and then you click the drop-down arrow next to the sketches folder. And you can see the two different sketches that you made. The first sketch that we made, as we recall, is the rectangle. The second sketch we made is the circle and the text. So we want to make this visible. How do we make it visible? Well, just click the eye right there. There's like an eye, which signifies the visibility of the sketch. Click it, Boom. Sketch is visible. You have your whole sketch right here, and you have your sketch for your text. So we're just going to dimension this, or no, extrude this. Sorry. All right. We're just going to click the text. Just like any other thing, we're going to click the text, not the text box. And we want to dimension it in the negative direction or the positive direction. If you wanted to dimension in the negative direction, you would have an indent. If you wanted to dimension it in the positive direction, you would have an, I guess, protrusion of the of your text. I'm going to dimension in the negative direction because I happen to think it looks better, but it's all up to you. This is in the positive direction. This is how it will look. Let me show you. You can always use the view cube over here to rotate your object. So you can just drag the view cube however you want and rotate it. So it's kind of cool. You can see all views of the object. And positive means positive, negative means it'll cut in a little bit and create me a cut. And if I say OK, and I want to hide the sketch because I can't really see what happens to my object, I'm going to hide the sketch. Same thing, click the eye and problem solve. And here it is. Here is the indent. Alright, but we're not done just yet. We want to go back home, which is on the view cube. It's a literal home icon. You just click that to go back to your home view, is what this isometric view is called. Alright, so we'll go in and we want to make this smooth because we don't want it sharp. It doesn't look great and it won't feel great either if we were to 3D print this. So let's go over and use this operation called fillet or fillet, whatever you want to call it. I call it either one, I don't know, whatever just comes into my head. So we're going to use the fillet tool, and I'm going to select the edges that I want to fillet. So I'll select the back, this back. This is what you're going to do too, and you'll see what happens. It basically smoothens the edges out, as you can see by the icon. Because when it smooths the edges, it's really better for the person who's holding it. So we want to fillet the back by, if I go back to my drawing, which we'll learn about how to use those later, 0.25 inches. And let it load up. Oh, I have to go back to the fillet tool because... Alright, I'm just going to select all my edges again, but you can fillet it by 0.25 inches by just entering in the value 0.25. We're going to select all 4 edges at once if I did not say that already. Okay, we're going to go to the other side. Alright, 0.25. Alright, now we got it filleted, but as you can see, still not all of those sides have gotten filleted. We can apply more fillets. So let's apply 2 more fillets. We're going to apply 1 to the corners after we've applied the third. We're going to apply 1 to these edges right here. There are some sharp edges over here, we don't really want that. We're going to apply 1 to these. We'll go to the other side, select the last edge. And this, if I recall, which I don't recall anything, we'll see this. What is this? The fillet radius is 0.25. And I'm going to have to go back to the fillet tool again and select all the edges. And you can have already entered 0.25. Also, if you forget to select everything, say I just forgot to select everything and I entered in a radius of 0.25, and it's not going to let me select it until I hold down Control or Command on Mac and click this edge. And once I clicked it, I have my 0.25, all 4 edges. There we go. Okay. So this is going to be our last fillet that we're going to apply. We're going to go into the fillet tool again. We're going to apply the front edges. So you can still see that they're sharp. Alright, I'm going to click this. The measurement that we're going to apply is 0.05 inches. However, I want to show you what happens if I do 0.125. So an eighth of an inch. It's not going to let me fillet it because, and there's an error. It just popped up. So that's because it's going to go into the other fillets and interfere with some stuff in the geometry. So if it interferes with it, it's not going to let you do it. So to make it not interfere, we're just going to go 0.05, smooth enough for us, and we are good. So if you want to take a roll around this is kind of how it looks. So yeah, that's how you make a name tag. I hope you learned from this. And yeah.